Yeah, Ms. Bottles, for the record, Your Honor, she prefers to use her middle name, Gail, to be addressed more informally if you intend.
No problem. Thank you very much. Ms. Bottles is here next to counsel. Also here this morning is Mr. Brian Potter. He's the agent of the Department of Corrections to prepare today's pre-sentence investigation report. We're here today for sentencing based upon a conviction entered after a plea of a single count of base embezzlement by an agent or trustee in an amount of at least $20,000 but less than $50,000. Let me take a quick look here at the PSI. I don't think I caught any need for change. I know that the defendant doesn't have any prior criminal history.
This case starts quietly, but don't let that fool you. What you're about to hear is one of the most emotionally charged sentencing hearings you'll ever witness. A trusted insider, a nonprofit serving vulnerable adults, and more than $40,000 gone. As the court reviews sentencing details, what's still hidden is the real damage, because this wasn't just financial, it was personal. And once the victims take the stand, the courtroom atmosphere changes completely. Stay with us, because this story escalates fast.
Miss Carey, I assume you got a copy. If so, do you have any corrections, objections, or amendments to make to the report?
Thank you. I did receive and review saying I did not have any corrections, amendments, or additions.
All right, thank you. Same question to the defense, Mr. Harrison.
I do, and I believe it pertains to PFJ 284, page 5. There's a table in the middle of the page there. I'm sorry, I didn't stand up to the court. I was trying to read it. It indicates 2 blank spaces where there was some hospitalization for 8 days. It says under medication. That's caused a bit of confusion because she continues to take medications for all of those conditions. So we didn't know exactly how to fit that in there.
Let's take a look at when were those hospitalizations?
That was in 2016, 15.
Okay.
In Tennessee, yes.
And does she receive medication for those?
She does indeed. She takes trazodone.
All right.
Plus Buspor. Never remember how to say that. It's Wellbutrin.
Yeah.
And Prozac.
Okay. So
since that time.
Here's what I think we should do. Take those entries that say, quote, hospitalized for 8 days, and I'd say, let's, I'm sorry, that was in 2015?
Yes.
I think we should add the phrase in 2015.
Yeah.
Slide all those over to where it says treatment began. And then for the medications, we'll list those. Again, you had trazodone, Buspar, and there was one more. Prozac. Yes. All right. So underneath medications, we have those 3 medications. We'll take that language, quote, hospitalized for 8 days, add in the sentence, or the 2 other phrases, in 2015. Move those all over to treatment began, and then we'll just leave the treatment continuing. All right, does that make sense?
It does.
Thanks. Anything else, Mr. Harrison?
I would, just the fact that she continues to be involved with CMH, but that may be a given. I don't know that needs to be specifically addressed.
Hold on. We should, I think it's fair to put that in there. We'll just say, Mr. Potter, maybe we should put that someplace underneath or right above that graph. It says physical health. Maybe that's not the right one. Would you say she continues to treat with community mental health?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Carey, I know I received some impact statements. I did review those.
I apologize, Mayor.
Yeah, of course.
I see that in the email and plan that the defendant had stated that she was not in mental health counseling. Would you like me to change that? Paragraph 3, 284.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, our apologies to Mr. Potter.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Carey, are there any victim impact statements or any victim impact statement?
Yes, there are quite a few.
Okay. Now, when I looked at the definition of a victim, it is a person or entity. Because this is an entity with a board of corrections. I'm sorry, I said board of corrections. Forgive me. A board of members or commissioners or board of directors, trustee, whatever. That group can speak.
Thank you.
All right. Who's coming forward?
One by.
If you want, the members can all, I'm sorry, not the members of the club, but the board can come up.
So can I give a statement on behalf of the club as a whole?
Yep.
But individual members are not sharing.
Not an individual member, but unless it is a member of the board.
Okay.
All right.
Just, yeah.
Yep.
So
If you're a
I'll,
member of the board, you may come up and address. Thank you. Sorry if I was unclear. And when each of you speaks, I'm just going to ask you to state your first and last name and then spell it. Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
okay. My name is Amy Kotulski, AMYKOTULSPI. And this statement is on behalf of Club Cadillac as an organization.
In your role?
I'm the director.
Thank you.
Your Honor, we, the colleagues of Club Cadillac, submit this statement to express the profound impact that the defendant's embezzlement has had on our organization, our members, and our community. Club Cadillac is a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting vulnerable adults living with mental illness. Our mission is to foster hope, independence, and meaningful opportunity in a community of mutual support so that members can reach their recovery goals. The theft of over $40,000 from our organization did not simply take money, it took opportunities, progress, and trust. This loss forced us to pause several critical projects that were already underway. One of the most significant was a development of an independent housing complex for our members, many of whom struggle to find safe and stable housing. This project represented a lifeline, dignity, security, and a chance at long-term recovery. The theft directly delayed this effort, and with it, delayed members' dreams of living independently in safe and affordable housing. The embezzlement also impacted our ability to send members to conferences and trainings, experiences that build confidence, skills, and leadership among people who rarely get the chance to develop them. These opportunities are often transformative. Losing them is a setback that cannot be measured only in dollars. The defendant had many of these opportunities. She attended Clubhouse Michigan conferences and trainings, as well as 2 Clubhouse International conferences, traveling to Salt Lake City and Baltimore, and many Michigan cities for these opportunities. She spoke and told her story of recovery and how the Clubhouse helped her. Yet she stole these opportunities from her friends. Beyond these programs, the theft depleted funds used to support members in their everyday progress. I'm sorry.
You can take your time. I know you're talking a little bit quickly.
Okay, sorry.
Even though this is just a room like any other room in the world, people get panicky. You can take your time. Thank you.
She took those, the progress towards employment, education, wellness, and housing stability. These are individuals who rely on consistency, structure, and reliable support. The financial loss cost us or forced us to tighten budgets, limit assistance, and postpone activities that directly contribute to the recovery and well-being. The emotional impact has been equally as devastating. Many of us worked closely with the defendant for years and considered her a trusted friend and colleague. Discovering that she had betrayed our trust was deeply painful. It created an environment of grief, anger, and self-doubt among the clubhouse. We were left questioning how this could have happened and how we could rebuild trust within the organization. The members themselves were also significantly affected. When they encountered the defendant in the community after the theft was discovered, many became nervous, uncomfortable, and fearful. They frequently reported these encounters to us, describing feelings of sadness, frustration, and anger. For individuals already living with mental health challenges, these emotional reactions were intensified and often resurfaced a sense of instability that we work hard every day to overcome. Club Cadillac is more than a workplace or program. It is a community built on trust, mutual support, and shared commitment. The financial and emotional harm caused by this crime will take years to repair. We have worked tirelessly to rebuild both our programming and our sense of safety that was taken from us. And what hurts the most is that this money was not taken out of survival or a need for survival. It was not taken to pay rent or groceries or pay bills. It was used to buy an ice cream maker, arts and crafts, jewelry, furniture for her boyfriend's house, curtains, paint, a desk and chairs, a large flat screen TV, wireless headphones, taking friends to lunch and dinner, and a zero-turn lawnmower for her boyfriend's friend to start a lawn mowing business. And that's just to name a few.
This is the moment where the case stops being about numbers and becomes about people. Legally, victim impact statements allow the court to understand harm beyond the balance sheet. And here, the harm is devastating. Funds meant for housing, recovery, and dignity were redirected toward personal luxury. The law treats embezzlement seriously when it involves a position of trust, but when the victims are a mentally vulnerable community, the emotional weight multiplies. Ask yourself, does intent matter more than impact here? And how do you ever rebuild trust after this?
These items just added salt to the wound. Club Cadillac would have used that money for the necessities, helping members pay rent to avoid eviction, scholarships to avoid to pursue educational goals, uniforms for members who are working, and sending as many members as we can to conferences to gain valuable experience and improve the clubhouse. We respectfully ask the court to consider not only the monetary loss, but the lasting impact this theft has left on vulnerable adults who already face significant challenges, and on the colleagues who devote themselves to supporting them. This statement was drafted together with members on behalf of the members who are unable to be here today, who are too afraid to speak out, and whose mental illness prevents them from being able to share their own impact statements.
Thank you. Ma'am, first and last name?
First name Heather, Heather. Last name is Goodman, Goodman.
Ms. Goodman, your role?
I am fairly new board member to Club Cadillac and also owner of a business, Wildflower Bakery downtown, that partnered with Club Cadillac with their employment process.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, Your Honor. Thank you for the opportunity to stand before you today with a heavy heart on behalf of Club Cadillac. This is not just a nonprofit. It is a lifeline for adults living with mental health challenges. It is a place where people find hope, dignity, and the courage to rebuild their lives. When Sandra Bottoms stole over $40,000 from Club Cadillac, she didn't just take money. She stole the opportunities. She stole stability. She stole trust. That money was meant for shoes so someone could walk into their first job interview with confidence, for clothing so members could step back into the workforce, for housing support so they could feel safe, and for projects that gave them purpose. Every dollar was meant to lift people up. Instead, Sandra chose to tear them down for her own gain. Wildflower partnered with Club Cadillac shortly after opening in July of 2024. We've employed 2 of their members, and I personally joined the board. I've seen firsthand the strength and determination of this community. But when Sandra's theft came to light, the uncertainty was crushing. There were real fears that Club Cadillac might not survive. Imagine the devastation for the members who already face stigma and barriers, suddenly wondering if the one place that believes in them would disappear because of one person's selfishness. Her actions were deliberate. She saw an opportunity to exploit a vulnerable group, and she took it. The ripple effect of her crime is enormous. Like a stone thrown into water, the waves keep spreading. Every member, partner, and supporter has felt those ripples and still do to this day. Sandra's actions demand real consequences. To let this pass with only a light punishment would send the message that exploiting vulnerable people carries little risk. She has already shown a clear pattern of manipulation, and if she is not held fully accountable now, she will continue to harm others. Your Honor, this was not just theft, it was betrayal. It was an attack on people who already fight every day to overcome challenges most of us cannot even begin to imagine. I urge you to hold her accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Justice here is not only about punishment, it is about protecting a community that deserves safety, dignity, and hope. And that is a face of it is right there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I do have one that was typed up. I don't know if you want something for record or.
No, that's all right. That's what Nancy does.
Okay, thank
She
you.
types it all down. All right, thank you. Was there another board member? Okay, yes, ma'am. When you begin, state
My
your
name
first.
is Erin, E-R-I-N, Brotherton, B-R-O-T-H-E-R-T-O-N. My name is Erin Brotherton. I've been a registered nurse over 40 years. My mother was a nurse who worked in a state hospital called Eloise in the Detroit area. I grew up hearing my mother tell about the unique and wonderful people who had mental health challenges. I developed an interest and deep compassion for those folks. It became my vocation. Working with the vulnerable has always been my calling. I specialized in psychiatric nursing and eventually segued to working with seniors for the past 25 years at the Council on Aging. I have served as a guardian, conservator, payee, and personal representative for 25 years. I have been on the Club Cadillac board for 17 years. I have seen individuals taken advantage of in many ways, including financial. I've also seen prominent agencies in the community who had embezzlement occur, who were not forthcoming, and kept the incidents from public knowledge with no consequences for the offender, including actual directors of those agencies. At no time were we not going to be honest about what occurred and to take responsibility so our members in club and the community know what we were doing to correct what had occurred. I'd like to set an example for our community to know that nonprofits matter. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Your name?
Marlene Cassidy.
Spell it. Spell it, please.
Marlene, M-A-R-L-E-E-N. Cassidy, C-A-S-S-I-D-Y.
Yes, Ms. Cassidy.
I'm a new board member, and I'm also a member of Coca-Cola. So thank you, Your Honor, for letting me allow to give my statement. When I first joined Coca-Cola, Sandra, better known as Gail, was the first individual to befriend me and provide me guidance. She demonstrated an interest in all well-being of members, staff of our clubhouse. Her involvement in conferences, meetings, advocacy for cause and mental health, and being on the board member was very inspirational to me and made me want to do her thing. She encouraged me to attend the international conference in Florida. She helped me with preparation of the presentation, providing valuable insight on what to expect. I thought she was a supportive friend. I thought she cared about every member, every staff, and every board member. However, it was revealed that she had been embezzling funds from her fellow clubhouse family. Throughout this period of theft, she continued to come into Coca-Cola and look at every one of us in the eyes. At the same time, displaying no remorse and no guilt. In the week preceding the conference, Gail helped me prepare for the presentation that I and Amy were supposed to give. The whole time, acting as a supportive friend, looking me in the eye, knowing that she had drained this account. She was letting myself and 2 staff members go to Florida for 6 days with $4 on this card. We would have been halfway there before we found this out. She was literally sending us with no money for food, no money for beverage, and no money for emergencies. This would have been so devastating for all three of us. She also had no consideration about embezzling thousands of dollars for the fact of staff members and board members, and especially our members. We have members who have nothing. She knew exactly what she was doing every time she took from those accounts. And she still came in the club Cadillac and looked us all in the face, knowing that she was taking from members that she called family. I will never forget the look on both Amy and Kristen's face when they had to tell us what she had done. As they were telling us, you could see and feel the sadness and relief on everyone's faces. They were trying so hard to hold back tears. The news was so devastating for all our staff and members. This affected us in so many negative ways. We had members that cried for weeks, and still do when this is brought up. We had members that are angry about this. We had members that became untrustworthy. This had such a negative impact on all clubhouses. Amy and Kristen, both of these ladies, were at risk of losing their positions and maybe even facing criminal charges. Amy has a young child. This child could have been without his mom for what she had done, and Amy could have been blamed. I just feel that she has shown no remorse, no regret, and no guilt. I cannot wrap my head around what she had done. And this is affecting Club Cadillac in such a negative way. Thank you for your time, Your Honor.
Thank you, Cassidy. Anyone else? Ma'am, your first and last name, spell and vote.
Jamie Shepler, JamieShepler.
Yes, Ms. Shepard.
Thank you, Your Honor, for giving me a chance. My name is Jamie Shepler. I'm a proud member of Club Cadillac, and I also am a member on the board. I may be 46 years old, but I still believe in monsters. Not the kind that live in your closets or hide under your bed, but the scariest kinds. The kind that all too often are standing right next to you. I've never met Miss Bottoms. I'd taken some time off the club. During that time off is when Miss Bottoms committed her crime. Modern day Jekyll and Hyde in action and or a chameleon. I've only learned of all this when I had returned to club. Both staff and members have always worked hard, pouring their hearts and soul into what they do. But since this crime has happened, everyone has had to work so much harder. Work harder to raise funds for outings, events, and activities. And whether anyone says it or not, I can see the stress, worry, anxiety, and heartache on their faces. Not only can I see it, but I can feel it too. Such a betrayal of trust came from a person that they put so much faith in, a person that they cared for, a person that they thought cared for them is beyond devastating. Ms. Bottoms was taken in and treated like one of our own, and this is how she repaid us. Such an act of greed and inhumanity like this is something I will never be able to wrap my mind around. This crime was not even committed out of need or desperation. It was evil, selfishness, and pure gluttonous. Miss Bottoms knew exactly what she was doing, and I truly believe she will do it again. The saying, forgive and forget, forgiving is the easy part. It's the forgetting that is impossible, especially when it came from someone that so much trust was put into. Makes me realize why I have such major trust issues. That's been something I wanted to work on, but since learning of this crime and people like Miss Bottoms, I ask myself why bother. All my hard work and efforts would be ruined. People, both staff and members at Club Cadillac, are not my friends. They are my family. In Club Cadillac, that's not just a place I go. That's a home to me. See just how negatively and deeply this affected everyone? I won't lie. Raises an anger and sadness in me that I never knew was possible. There are, however, 4 things that can never be taken from us. 1, our humanity. 2, our caring. 3, our willingness to be there and help each other. And 4, our deep bond that has only been made stronger. Ms. Bottoms, I can't speak for everyone, but I forgive you. As for forgetting, I'm sorry. That is something that I cannot and will not ever be able to do. You deeply hurt and betrayed one of the best groups of people ever, my family. And that deeply hurts me. May God help you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And I have one more, I see. Yes, ma'am. This will be our last one.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Kristen Kenny, Kristen Kenny. I'm president of the Board of Club Cadillac. Your Honor, I submit this statement not just on behalf of the Club Cadillac community, but as an individual victim of the defendant's calculated and profound betrayal. Embezzlement is often seen as a financial crime, but this case is fundamentally about the deliberate destruction of trust and the predatory targeting of a vulnerable community. The defendant did not just betray a nonprofit organization. She betrayed a deep personal friendship. This relationship went beyond professional courtesy. She was a friend who had been in my home, whom I shared hotel rooms with, and for whom I performed personal acts of kindness and care, such as doing her hair for a conference and helping with makeup. This proximity provided her with intimate knowledge of the organization and its operations, which she then weaponized. The true depth of this betrayal was physically symbolized when the defendant gave me a pair of earrings, urging me to wear them to the Clubhouse Michigan conference, only for me to later realize that this gift had been purchased with stolen organizational funds. This was a calculated act of mockery and deceit. It turned a moment of professional pride into a stark reminder of her cold-blooded opportunism. I assert my belief that the defendant deliberately targeted the Club Cadillac community and set out to gain a position that would allow her the maximum opportunity to embezzle funds. She sought out a place of trust in a mission dedicated to mental health and recovery, only to exploit it for personal gain. This crime is not an isolated incident, but rather the culmination of a pattern of deceit and financial misconduct. In conversation, the defendant admitted to me that she had previously been accused of stealing money while working as a cashier at a Walmart in Tennessee. Yet she adamantly claimed, much like now, that the accusation was untrue. The actions before this court now demonstrate her ongoing pattern of denying responsibility for financial impropriety. Even after her crime was exposed, the manipulation did not cease. I received a mysterious, untraceable email from an individual claiming to be a concerned former therapist who supposedly treated the defendant following her accusation at Walmart. This anonymous source requested that the club offer leniency and the opportunity to allow her to repay the stolen funds. This sounds like an admission to me. I believe this untraceable communication was a calculated attempt by the defendant to manipulate the victims into a softer outcome, further underscoring her refusal to take genuine responsibility. The defendant further showed her devious nature and intent by misleading the board and the club into believing she had secured virtual employment before beginning to spend stolen money in earnest. Furthermore, she was simultaneously using stolen funds while asking the board for a loan to secure an apartment she claimed she needed to leave her relationship with the same boyfriend she is now residing with again. The defendant continues to prioritize her own interests over accountability. I have been informed that she managed to leave the homeless shelter by recruiting locally, by reuniting locally with her boyfriend, who is also a member of Club Cadillac with a disability. This move is particularly egregious, given that the defendant left her disabled husband in Tennessee to come to Michigan with the boyfriend that she met online, the very individual who introduced her to Club, her latest mark, Your Honor. This defendant's own sister has confirmed that the defendant is capable of working, and other than a deep-seated resentment toward siblings who required numerous surgeries and treatment for facial birth defects, she has no disabilities of her own. I personally encouraged the defendant to seek employment and offered to write glowing recommendations and be a reference. This evidence confirms she chose theft and manipulation over honest work. The motto of Club Cadillac is get well, get working. Your Honor, the court must consider the likelihood of restitution being paid to the victim organization. Given the defendant's sporadic work history, her age, and her continued ability but unwillingness to work, it is highly improbable that Club Cadillac community will ever see a single dollar of the stolen funds repaid through wage garnishment or structured payments. The only way to achieve justice in this case, to deter future predatory behavior and protect the vulnerable, is to recognize that the defendant operates with a calculated disregard for the well-being of others and a deep-seated lack of remorse. I urge the court to impose the most severe sentence possible. The sentence must reflect the calculated nature of the targeting, the profound personal betrayal, and the fact that any lesser sentence relying on future restitution will only further victimize the community the defendant has already financially and emotionally devastated. Thank you.
All right, I'll turn to Mr. Harrison, sir. Allocution? I'm sorry, did you all have anything further to present to me, consider, besides allocution?
Nothing besides allocation.
Thank you. You may speak, sir.
Look, usually my standard advice to a client in this situation is try not to respond to the statements made by the victim. They're reacting emotionally, they're reacting out of a sense of what they regard to be a personal betrayal. And I have no doubt that that's the case, and that they are genuine in their feelings in that regard. It's difficult to not at least address the apparent irony that this person could have been treated as a person who was in need of some help, as a member of their organization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now we have a request that she be treated as harshly as possible in light of I could only describe personal reactions that they had, emotional reactions to what occurred. What occurred cannot be explained. You can't sit there and say, she did this because I wish I could, because she doesn't know. Part of it was she was manipulated by a third party, and you've already heard the results of that: furniture, a lawnmower, and a flat screen TV, etc., etc. Does that operate as any sort of legal? Of course not. Of course not, Your Honor. And I don't think it's particularly fair. And again, I'm not choosing that word very carefully. I'm just choosing it because it fills in the blank. For them to say that she has no remorse, because she does. She's expressed it to me and to a certain degree to Mr. Potter. She cannot explain what led her to betray these people in this way. And that's the exact word that she and I used when we discussed it in my office. I know she hasn't been forthcoming. She's not comfortable speaking out loud to you in court. But you had a unique opportunity here, Your Honor. You read the police report. And that describes an incomprehensible set of events where someone who was entrusted with somebody else's money took it and used it to her advantage. It also shows that this very much became something that spiraled out of control very quickly. It started with relatively small amounts, and the demands became greater and the withdrawals became greater, and eventually it reached a point where there's a little over $40,000 involved. That's a copious amount of money to apparently the Club Cadillac, as well as it is to Miss Bottoms. Wrapping her brain around the fact that she had access to that kind of money for her own personal use is something that she's had a lot of difficulty with as well. So here's what we're not saying. We're not saying gee whiz, Club Cadillac should have had better controls on their money. We're not saying gee whiz, Sandra bears no complicity in this and was led astray by somebody else. What I'm saying is all of those things contributed to what became a completely out of control situation that hurt an organization that she cared deeply and was a member of and believed in their mission. It hurt people individually, obviously, you've just seen that. And it also scarred Gail Bottoms because she had no idea what she was going to do to make things right. She said all along, I plan to pay the money back. Well, I think that statement Ms. Kelly made is also...
This is where law and emotion collide. The defense leans heavily on sentencing guidelines, rules created to ensure consistency, not necessarily justice in every case. The argument here is that because the defendant has no prior record, incarceration isn't presumed. But guidelines aren't handcuffs on a judge. They're a starting point. The court must now weigh mental health, lack of criminal history, abuse of trust, and long-term community damage. So here's the real question. When guidelines feel disconnected from harm, should discretion step in?
Pretty accurate in that there's not going to be a way realistically for her to pay this money back anytime soon. And she's aware of that as well. At the end of the day, here's what I can rely on. I can say the sentence guidelines promote a sentence whereby she would not be incarcerated as a result of this activity. Now, I know that doesn't sound right to people who don't regularly participate in the criminal justice system. But she has no prior criminal offenses, and the conviction in this matter, for whatever the reason, wasn't weighed all that heavily by the legislature so as to create a situation where prison time would be a possibility. Likewise, I don't believe that jail time, quite frankly, ought to be a possibility as well. I am fully aware, of course, Your Honor, I've been in this court thousands of times with regard to the application of the felony guidelines here in cases, okay? So I'm not trying to sell you a pie that you don't want to eat. I'm not trying to tell you that you must follow the guidelines, that the guidelines are supreme in their application across cases in this state, because they are not. The court is afforded some degree of discretion with regard to the guidelines. However, I don't believe we know anything factually or have heard anything, frankly, from the emotional presentations of the board members today that could serve as fodder for the court to exceed or circumvent those guidelines. I say that not because I wish to prod the court, or not because I wish to try and place additional restrictions on your discretion as a sentencing judge. I simply say that to focus the court's attention, as well as everybody else's in this room, that yes, there will be a sanction for her behavior in this regard. But no, I don't think it ought to include incarceration, much as the Department of Corrections has already intoned that they also don't believe that a period of incarceration is applicable to this matter. No reasonable circumstance or end would be served by incarcerating someone like Gail Bottom. She is clearly, I shouldn't say clearly, she suffers from mental health. She was a member of Club Cadillac. To become a member of Club Cadillac, that is the status that you're in, is that you have issues that you need assistance with transitioning into get well, get to work. That's why she was there too. I hope that the court can also justify the sanction that it imposes here to comply with both the recommendation and what I feel the appropriate application of the sentence guidelines. Thank you.
Right. Ms. Karen.
Thank you. I'm not going to be able to articulate better than the board members of the board. I will say a few things. What a terrific organization and what a community they've created for their members. And you can clearly tell the impact that this had on that organization and all the people plus that aren't here that this impacted. Yes, they are reacting emotionally. Yes, they are reacting professionally. Yes, they are reacting exactly how they should. They all said Club Cadillac is a family. She was a member of that family and she intentionally took advantage and betrayed them. She stole over $42,100 from them over a period of time. She knew what was wrong and she continued to do it. The fact that I plan to pay it back means she knew what was wrong when she was taking it. She knew what was wrong every single time she used that money or that card, and she did it anyway, betraying them. So yeah, they are reacting exactly how they should. She did it because she could. She did it not once, but for months. And the victim impact statement that was attached to the pre-sentence investigation report, I was really glad to see that because I learned a lot. She took money that, as they explained, was vital to their mission, was vital to their resources, their rehabilitation, their programming, the housing project that's now delayed. There are a lot of things that this affected and a lot of people that this affected. But what it affected is vulnerable people who are already emotionally fragile and their sense, I'm going to quote this letter, a devastating blow to their sense of security and belonging within their own community. I'm not sure that there's a price tag for that. created a deep sense of disillusionment and questioning of safety within a space designed to be secure for these people. And clearly it impacted them. And then you read in the letter about their mission and the funds, the missing funds, the potential, it says the potential to fund numerous conferences and educational opportunities, as they talked about, the capacity to provide clothing for job interviews to help these people get on their feet, housing support, college applications, social outings, to have these vulnerable people feel normal and safe within their community. All that clearly was impacted and lost. The ripple effect, frankly, is staggering. And I think, as the letter states, and as the board member stated, this was a calculated, sustained scheme of deception carried out by the defendant. And again, I understand the sentencing guidelines. I know that they're 0 to 9. I knew that at the beginning when I scored her at the start of this case, that because she doesn't have a record. However, I think in this particular case, given the position of trust, given the amount of incredible impact that it had on so many people, so many vulnerable people who are working really hard within that community to do better and create a life for themselves. She really shattered a lot of that. So I am going to ask for a period of incarceration plus the maximum amount of probation. I'm very worried they're not going to get this money back. I don't know how she's going to do it, but the longer she's supervised, hopefully there can be some system worked out to make her pay this back. This $42,000 represents so much to these people, and they need to feel restored, and they need to feel like the justice system is on their side, frankly. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Bottoms, you have the right to make a statement if you choose to do so. Now is the time. Is there anything you wish to say? No? All right, thank you. For the record, she whispered and I could hear it, but I also saw her shake her head no. All right, we've had a lot of talk today. It's always interesting for me as a judge, cases that take the most to talk about in a courtroom. They're not often the cases that everybody thinks they are. I have violent crimes, sexual assault cases where you don't have this much emotion tied to them. It's not that those aren't emotional. I'm just saying it's cases like this that are unique. And they are because of where the impact came from. It came from within inside. And it came where it's not just one person, but it's several people. I know what Club Cadillac does, and so I've got a lot of comments here, so bear with me as I get through this. The sentencing guidelines are created by the legislature, and they tell us, judges, here are some guidelines. You have to use them, but you don't have to follow them. But, by the way, in application, you're supposed to, judge, start off with the presumption that there is no jail because of where she scores. It's always shocking when I tell people that here's how the law works as of 2021, and that is when somebody scores an intermediate sanction cell, which is anything from 0 to 17 months, the law tells me that it actually means 0. It doesn't make sense to a lot of people. And in this instance, you would think, well, judge, it says here the maximum punishment is up to 10 years. We want you to give her the most. 10 years never means 10 years. 15 years never means 15 years. There's a 2/3 rule. So 15 years really means at most 10. But then I also have to apply the guidelines. And when you apply the guidelines, they are not mandatory. Judges are still allowed discretion. the thing that's really difficult in these instances is, where do I go with that discretion? It's pretty easy on a case where somebody's got a sentencing range of, 2 to 3 years at the minimum end. Yeah, I'd probably pick somewhere in the middle. That's pretty easy. But here, it's 0 to 9, but it's really supposed to be 0. So Judge, how do you apply your discretion? By the law, or by the way, if you want to do any jail, you've got to establish reasonable guidelines. And plus, by the way, we are not going to tell you what the reasonable guidelines, quote unquote, language means. But these cases are always quite interesting. Now, as I mentioned here, this isn't like somebody stole from Coca-Cola, right? If you embezzle from Coca-Cola, the likelihood of them feeling it, even if it's the same amount of money, pretty low. I've had embezzlement cases where the victim is a business. And I've seen the business person leave the courtroom really upset, but they never bothered to step up and tell me, like the people here did today, the actual impact. I'm sure businesses feel it, but it's a little bit different. A business can work hard to make $42,000. I've sat on several charity boards and programs and committees and tried to raise that kind of money. The amount of effort it takes for a board and a team to make $42,000 in this county, where the average household income or median household income is about $42,000 to $44,000. It's very, very challenging. And there are a lot of programs out there asking the same people to give the same dollar bill. So the impact here is a lot different than it is from stealing from Coca-Cola or even stealing from any other business, because that business can, I know there's challenges, it's not as easy. They can just keep working harder and make more money. Add more products, add more services. It doesn't work here in this instance. When I look at the impact, and I know what the program does, we've heard a lot about it today, and just because I'm here in the community, I hear about Club Cadillac, and I've known several people who have benefited from it or worked there. And these are people who are members, people who may not have a place to belong otherwise. I know when I was a kid, I don't remember there being a lot of places to belong. It's like when I look at kids and sports teams, oh my gosh, there's so much opportunity for kids. This provides a significant need. I think about the opportunities for not being able to do conferences. I have conferences about 3 a year. And even though sometimes they're kind of annoying to me because I got to leave my caseload and come back to twice as much work, even I get the benefit of going down, talk to other judges and realize I'm not alone sitting on that bench. Other judges, and we talk and we hear, but it's really important for the members of this club to be able to go to a conference. It gives them some self-confidence and a place of belonging. So they realize the struggles that they deal with here in Cadillac are struggles that are shared with people across the state and in other places. It's not just that they got a vacation for a day or two to go to a hotel, because I don't enjoy hotels at all. But anyways, at least you get to go and you realize I'm not alone. I have a network. There are other people like me who go through the same struggles. So that's what makes this somewhat very different. I've got a lot of notes here. If you all saw me writing notes, I wasn't ignoring you. I was trying to keep as many thoughts here together as I possibly could. So bear with me. Some of what I'll say bounces around. I can't remember. I know which one it was, and I apologize. I can't remember her name. She called her, monsters living inside. But she ended up saying the right thing toward the end, the thing that I wanted to hear her say. And she did. Forgiveness. Do I think Miss Bottoms is a monster? No, but that's the point. That's what you felt. Because that's how it feels when it's a person close to you who does it, who hurts you. You had the right comment. Forgiveness is critically important. At our house, my kids hate it. Whenever something goes wrong or they complain about something or they want something and I say, no, I'm not going to pay for you to go on another trip or whatever, and they complain, that's what we call a valuable lesson. So I hope that those within Club Cadillac, including Ms. Bottoms, turn this into a valuable lesson. Right? And try and to learn about forgiveness. We're here in the Christmas season, and I know people say Christmas is about fill in the blanks, gifts, love, hope, all of those things. But it is about one thing overall. Because the greatest example of love is, based upon the message of Christ, is forgiveness. That is the most difficult thing to do, and that's the lesson here. And ma'am, I forgot the name. It's all right. That's the lesson here. Forgiving is easier than forgetting, but you have to go through it. So I hope that you all do. Do I think Miss Bottoms is a monster? No. I see a lot of people every day here in front of the court who've done something wrong. Whether it's divorce cases, personal protection orders, lawsuits, criminal cases. Everybody on this earth isn't the one that we're supposed to celebrate in 10 days for Christmas. Therefore, we all have hurt somebody. We have all sinned. We've all made bad choices. Doesn't mean any of us monsters. Doesn't mean any of us are less valuable. It just means that we've had an issue or issues, and we need to learn from them. So everybody here needs to learn from them. One other point, in case there's ever an appellate court that looks at this, they can't see what I can see. Half of my courtroom is full of people, or our courtroom is full of people involving this case. And I can see the faces of the people out there, tears, head shakes, nods, arm holding, arms around each other. And that is an important message for me to recognize. And I say the word recognize because sometimes in sentencing, even though people might leave and think that sentence isn't what I wanted.
This case leaves us with a sobering takeaway. The court isn't just sentencing a crime, it's responding to betrayal, calculated deception, and lasting harm to a community built on trust. While the law provides structure through sentencing guidelines, justice here demanded deeper consideration of impact, vulnerability, and accountability. Whether incarceration ultimately serves restoration remains debated, but the emotional consequences are undeniable. If you found this case as shocking as we did, hit that like button, share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth courtroom breakdowns you won't see anywhere else.
You've all got to speak. You get to be heard, and I want you to know I listen to you. So now let's get back to sentencing. Again, it's left within the court's discretion. Guidelines are not mandatory. They are a tool I must use. And when I look at things, if I were to think that this needs to have a jail sentence, I need to balance things out. So this goes to the question or comment I think Ms. Kenny was saying toward the end, and that is, what's the highest sentence the court can give, or harshest sentence is the phrase she used. Well, what is harsh? Because I'll tell you, the legislature tells me any day is harsh. Because they've told me the presumption is this. But they also give me discretion. They allow the court to apply discretion, and I get discretion when I see the impact. And here's the one impact, and I think it was Miss Cassidy that got me thinking about it. This period lasted 7 months, give or take a few days. So let's just summarize and say about 120 days, 210 days. 210 days. And I don't know exactly how many people are in the club. I'm going to guess, having seen it fluctuate up and down, it's probably 50 plus. Those are little tiny cuts. So when I say Miss Bottoms isn't a monster, I don't think she is. I think she got into a spinning problem and didn't know how to get out of it, kept doing it, and she probably didn't feel the tiny cuts. Right? She's like one little prick of a needle. That's what kept happening. Every dollar bill was a prick of a needle. Probably wasn't feeling it because you all didn't necessarily feel it right away. But still, it's that death by 1,000 cuts, or 210. Every time she looked at one of you, every time she looked at a board member, every time she looked at the member. So I understand it, and I want you to know I hear you. And those things I take into consideration for my establishment of any reasonable grounds. It wasn't only the money that taken. It's not only the distrust, It's how the money was spent. It's how she continued the charade, which probably she didn't feel herself, and how she kept looking you all in the eyes every single day. And then later you find out and think about, gosh, I remember that time we were at that conference. I remember that time I did her hair. I remember that time we went out for lunch. I remember that time she shook my hand or said hi to me at the club. Oh my gosh, I feel violated. Well, that's what makes these cases, which even seem kind of small. Nobody got nobody got physically injured. There wasn't a sexual assault. That's what makes these cases hard. I hope you all continue to move toward forgiveness. I hope Ms. Bottoms moves toward forgiveness for herself. I hope everybody takes this and turns it into a slight positive and lessons learned. Again, when I see the amount of money, and while I've never been on a board with Club Cadillac, so I'm not saying anything, but I've worked in clubs and programs. It's a lot to raise $42,000 in this county. So, how do I establish what is a reasonable and proportionate? Because I don't get to determine what is the harshest, because that's my discretion, is that I have to establish what's called a reasonable and proportionate sentence. So, by the way, nothing I'm going to say is going to make everything feel better. Even if I gave you the harshest sentence that you all think is what I should give, can't. By the way, none of it makes anybody feel better. It never does. I see the faces of people on sexual assault cases, and I give the sentence, and it doesn't make them feel better. It never takes away the pain. Only time and them and their strength and their faith take away that pain. All right, so I've done a lot of talking. Hopefully I've done well to respect both sides, because I see both sides to a degree here. I see people like Ms. Bottoms who come in here all the time and have challenges. So, Mr. Harrison, do we have any challenge with restitution? I
believe so.
All right. $68 state minimum fee, $130 crime victims' right fee, a $300 court cost. I'm not going to assess any fine, a $300 attorney fee, 36 months of probation. Therefore, there's a $30 a month or $60 a month for monitoring if there's electric monitoring. Well, we had to do a DNA test here, so there should be a $60 DNA fee. And to whom is that payable, Ms. Carey?
Sure.
To the Wexford County Sheriff Department. There is restitution ordered as well. That is an amount of, I've seen a couple different amounts here. I know the amount was $40,101.73 initially, but then I see that there's an increased amount of restitution on the CFJ 145, page 2. So I just want to make sure I get the amount right. The investigation said the 42 number. It's either 40, I'm sorry?
I believe that's a typo in the PSI. We didn't catch.
In which one? All right, $42,101.73 payable to the Club Cadillac in restitution. The court adopts the terms and conditions for probation that are listed inside the report on CFJ 145, page 2. I find that they're well suited for rehabilitative purposes, unless there's any changes between the amounts that I listed. Now the question is as to any period of confinement. Again, I do find there to be reasonable grounds for a period of confinement. Is it going to make everybody feel great? No. How do I pick a number? Well, that's what judges do. We just pick numbers. We do the best we can on our experience. And then I have to look at proportionality. She has no prior convictions of any kind at all. And she is, I know I'm not supposed to say a woman's age in public, but it's more than 58, but less than 60. So she should have known better. And I think about all the individuals who were injured. And so how do I make it proportionate? Well, the guidelines tell me it's 0 to 9 months. any period of confinement is significant. So the court sentences the defendant to hold on, I gotta do math. I'm going to say a 100-day jail sentence with 2 days of credit. That is to begin immediately. And she has the right to be considered for, oh wait, I have to say 100 days to 120 months because it's her first felony conviction. She has the right to be considered for early release from probation after halftime if she's completed all the terms and conditions of her probation. If not, then her probation will continue. That includes she has to pay all of her restitution and she'll have to sign a wage garnishment. Sorry. All right, Mr. Harrison is bringing to you 2 copies of one document. This document tells you that you have the right to appeal a conviction and sentence in your case. That is typically done by filing a claim of rights to appeal. However, based on this case's resolution, any appeal must be done by filing an application for leave to appeal. If you choose to file an application for leave to appeal, you may, and you want the court to appoint an attorney to assist you, you may complete the bottom half of the copy that you're going to take with you and return to the court within 42 days. Again, place your initials on that one copy. Does not waive or assert any rights. It merely acknowledges your receipt of the other copy of the document. Again, today, folks, this is about valuable lessons, learning from them, forgiveness, and welcome to the law as I try to make a sentence that somehow is reasonable, proportionate, and is something that can stand up in the test of any appeal. While you may not always see appeals, I read every appellate opinion that comes out of the Court of Appeals. So I'm doing it with somewhat of an educated experience. Mr. Potter, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Carey? Mr. Harrison?
Nothing further.
Folks, Merry Christmas to you. God bless. Works usual.